Hi, I'm Ming. I'm the Artistic Director of Singapore International Film Festival. Today we have the team behind our opening film, Tiong Bahru Social Club, with us to talk about the film. I would like to welcome Tembi Tiam, the director, and Antti Toivonen, the co-producer and co-writer. And then we have Huang Junxiang, or JX, the producer. We're also glad to have the happiness agents with us, Joe Tan, who played Giok, and Lonina Muhammad, who played Haslina, and then the resident and cat lover, Mrs. Wee, played by Jay Ling Hand. Welcome. So the film has been 5 years in the making, and the screening at SGIFF is the first public screening with our local audience. So the legend of the film goes that BTM and Antti, you met at the screening at SGIF 5 years ago and decided to make a film together. So I would like to ask, what was the origin of the idea? Did it start with the vibe of Tiong Bahru neighborhood and aesthetic look, the data gathering algorithm, the different attitude towards living between Finland, where Antti you came from, or Singapore? Or is it about doing a comedy together?
Yeah, it's really by chance that I met Antti actually at the after party of the closing film of SGFF 5 years ago. So I was just wondering, like, you know, when everybody was suited up and there was this guy who was in his sweatpants, so what he was doing, and he introduced himself as, you know, someone who works in the advertising industry and coming from Finland. So I think our starting point was, you know, like, you came from the happiest country in the world. Why would you want to come to Singapore, you know, and to be here for like quite a number of years as well, you know, like what made you stay? So that was our starting point, yeah. And then the following weekend, we met up for coffee. So I find out a bit more about him. We talked about how we feel about Singapore. And then, you know, we thought, you know, like, oh, actually, then we talked about, you know, like, oh, where are you staying now? You know, like, oh, and both of us have always wanted to maybe, you know, have a place in Tiong Bahru. and so that's, I think, how we came about, you know, to brainstorm for like possible entry points, right, to such a story. Antti, you want to?
Yeah, no, that's a very accurate story. That's exactly how it went. And yeah, I was just crashing the party, and I didn't realize it was a black tie event. And yeah, but it was a very you know, happy accident in that sense, because it really led us to making this movie. And as BTM said, like the following weekend, we met for a coffee, started talking about film, all these things that BTM just mentioned as well, and we just came up with an idea. And I think it really came as like did we just want to make like a comedy together? I think that was a little bit the starting point. We were like, we had a very like similar sensibility, and we found quite interesting the fact that we come from like very different places in the world, and we both have a very peculiar taste, but it was kind of like not exactly the same taste, but we felt that it kind of complements each other quite nicely. And then we came up with an idea. I can't remember, did we come up with the name even on the spot? Tiong Bahru Social Club. And then BTM said that let's make a movie. And I was like, you mean a short film? He's like, no, let's make a feature film. And I looked at him and I thought, like, are you out of your mind? You know, like, we just met, we got this idea, and this is the first time we ever meet, and I'm going to leave this cafe with a film project. But that's actually what happened, and yeah, and it became reality.
BTM, you must pitch it very, very well. You kind of like met people for the first cafe. I mean, we heard that kind of elevator pitching. You met someone and then kind of coerced him into making a feature film. So you both want to make comedy. Can I just first ask, what's your kind of comedy inspiration? Like any director or any films that you really love and then you want to bring it into Tiong Bahru Social Club?
For me, one of my influence is Tati. Yeah, so I think the film that I showed the cast and crew was Mon Uncle by Tati, and of course Playtime. And the other kind of films that I really am very fond of is Ozu. Of course, people wouldn't, associate him with a comedy, filmmaker. But I like the,
Absolutely.
but I like the gentleness, of his work and his humor. So that was my reference. And of course, with Ozu, I think people like Yoji Yamada, right, who did Tora-san, of a guy who always go away and then come back to return to his family. So I think that kind of comedy and that kind of sensibility as well, I think is what I can relate to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say like to me like I love comedy, and I guess that's like a big part of my personality. I like stupid things, and that's what I've always like really enjoyed in my like earlier work as well. So I've had like a few comedy shorts in Sundance before and all that, but this was my first feature film that I wrote. But there's like a like certain kind of like a voice. And I would say like and that's where the interesting mix comes, because Vidya Masu here is like he's as a person he's very gentle, and I think I'm a little bit raw and like kind of like barbarian in that sense. And I think it was two very different energies coming together, which we found very interesting. And of course, what we wanted to do as well, because we knew by definition, like Nordic sensibility and Southeast Asian sensibility, you put them together, it's definitely going to be like a very interesting mix of things. And I guess like I come from a comedy tradition, a very deadpan comedy, like and no like slapstick and all that. So it's like kind of like very real and kind of like culture where you don't accentuate humor. And I think it is something, of course, there are filmmakers in this region as well who do it, but there is a much stronger, like very accentuated comedy tradition here. And I think that's actually what makes Tiong Bahru Social Club partially quite different. It's like, it's very understated in every aspect. Now you look at like, say, Abi's character, he doesn't talk much, which is like, and he doesn't like, and none of the jokes are kind of explained. A lot of it is done like with the faces of like how the actresses and actors brought the whole script to life as well. So it is a very, it's a bit of a deadpan comedy, even though there's like very happy music. So yeah.
And also the visual cues. I find that kind of apart from the script, the visual is kind of right on the spot. Like from the beginning, when the when Abi just like walking to every moment that his friend in that place, and it's really bring humor to the film. So actually, you mentioned that at your very early discussions, and you already decide to call it Tiong Bahru Social Club. The social club, this part I'm particularly interested about, because it sort of reminds me of the housing projects of some of the most left-leaning government that we have seen but failed in the history. So this idea of happiness-driven community project like Tiong Bahru Social Club, there seems to be something positive, but also a bit sinister behind it. When you developed the story, was there any particular social or historical reference you were thinking when you create the idea?
Yeah, so actually, Tiong Bahru Social Club was a working title, and we always thought that we should change it to something else, even when we were editing. But I think the title just stuck, right, for a long time. And you're exactly right. Like I think one of our reference in terms of time period is actually the 60s and 70s, where a lot of dreams and hopes, were planned, and when I think possibilities was like boundless, right, in the arts, in the culture, in the society, where people were trying different kind of experiments in terms of community projects, experiments in terms of architecture. So you find that some of our references, in terms of aesthetics, comes from there. Some of our story inspiration comes from there as well. In fact, Auntie, one of our earlier references is a film called Commune or something, right? And and in fact, even Friends. So the script has undergone like more than 30 different versions. So the earlier versions were actually quite different. There were property agents in one version, where Abi is a property agent, and then there were like one version where it is like a Friends kind of concept, and then it became what it is today.
Say co-living and communal living was all the time at the heart of it. And I would also add to like BTM's like point there, like one thing that was quite inspiring to us is like Tiong Bahru's architecture to start with, because Tiong Bahru is, if I'm not mistaken, it's the oldest still standing HDB development in Singapore. So it's not the oldest like created, but it was like one of the first ones from the time when urbanization of Singapore started accelerating. And at the time, it has been a very like futuristic vision of like how life will be. And that's why like you look at Tiong Bahru, even today, there is this like a modern day kampung feel to it, but it's a very village-like neighborhood. And it's almost like this little island of happiness that inspired us quite a lot. And we thought, we were looking at the architecture and these buildings, we thought like these people who drew this neighborhood, how did they envision the future? Because of course, when you create an entire neighborhood, you try to future-proof it. And so they had like some sort of an idea where world is going. And now quite a few decades later, we see that the world didn't end up looking like Tiong Bahru. So that's why we tried to create like this alternate future, what could have been. So that's why like it is, we call it a retro future film, because it is like the past idea of the future, what the film represents. And that's why the technology and everything in the film is very different to the technology we know today. And we quite purposely wrote the whole thing. And then of course, like I created the whole thing such that you can't really tell what year it is. Is this a past or the present or the future?
But the idea of data collections or data-driven, those algorithms is becoming quite a reality now, and it's like how it dominates our life. Yeah, so it is very I think it's very relevant for what the time we are living now. And so after talking to Auntie and Bitian, you two are the mastermind behind Tiong Bahru Social Club, and I would like to bring Nolina into the conversation. So hello.
Hello.
Your character, Haslina, represents much of the driving force of the community carrying out the process. So how did you relate to your character? She seems to aware of what's going on behind the scene, but she happily performed the public face. Is she somewhat on the dark side working for the system, where you think she also has some doubt? How do you interpret this character?
Firstly, there's so many questions in that, right? So we'll try and dissect it bit by bit. The impetus of it is really belief. You've got to believe that this is for the good of society, the achieving of happiness. So I don't think Haslina as a character ever is malevolent or menacingly planning. I don't think anybody who works in the civil servant also realize that they could be malevolent, right? So they wouldn't. They really believe in a system that they think it's for the betterment of a community. Now, why wouldn't you? You come into Tiong Bahru and you see residents who are largely elderly and living alone. You do believe that intergenerational engagement would help solve problems. And you're also knowing that this generation of the younger generation, we're talking about intergenerational relationship, which is what Tiong Bahru Social Club actually presents. The young, happy, supposedly happy, they are young, but they're supposedly happy new generation will infect in a positive way the elderly in that community of Tiong Bahru, right? It's about, it is almost like in architecture terms, we spruce up a community. Gentrification would help. Gentrification will make things look better. So there's so many ways to read it. So, but most importantly, at the heart of it all, it is the belief that this is for the better. But something shifts in Haslina when she meets B, which is the Thomas character. Something in B, which is not so easily resolved, because B, despite his smiling demeanor, is always on the low side of the happiness quotient that's displayed in the film. And that is a mystery to be resolved. You try your very best. You give him someone with a cat. You give him this, you give him that. Then finally you say, you give him love. So is that the response? Is that the result? And when he finally seemed to hit the happiness quotient, he decides to leave. And that is when she gets a little bit shifted. But the shift in this film is not to be heavy-handed, is the shift is up to us to also reflect. What do we do next? Do we continue with this belief? Well, this belief is wonderful. Do we need to figure out a new way to execute this belief? Do we persist in the same route? And that's not something that the film wants to didactically tell the audience. So this is the answer. This is the best way out. So that's why I kind of like, even for me watching the film, I like that it is a bit ambivalent. It leaves something for you to take home and think about, and yet not too heavy-handed to be moralizing about it. That was something I felt I took away myself watching the film, because doing it is slightly different from watching it, yeah. Doing it in bits and pieces, reading it, and suddenly you see it all put together so beautifully by the team. And I'm talking about the team as BTM and Wan Ping and on everyone else that have contributed to the color, to the look, to the sound, that we are just so privileged as actors to be part of the process. But they're like jigsaw puzzles. And by the time we leave it several years ago, we come back to watch it, it's, oh, was that what we did? You know, so yeah, I felt for myself as an audience, leaving it light and leaving it a lot of breathing spaces, and hence the limited dialogue. I love the limited dialogue, just sufficient to give you a taste and not too much to overload you with messages. And that breathing space for us to think about. That's beautiful for me as I watch the film.
So in following what Nolina you just said, I actually want to jump to Joe, because Joe, you stay like, you were, I like how you portray Georg, this character, because I find you always find a balance of, there's some kind of vulnerability and some kind of uncertainty. That's my reading. Your character seems always checking what the other people are doing, and then if you are doing it right. And after Thomas' character Abi left, you still stay with the story, but we don't know the ending of your character. So what do you imagine the future lies ahead for Georg? How do you read your character?
Again, I would like to echo actually what Nolina said, which is that, of course, the playing of the acting in the film versus watching it was very different, because as Bitiam and Auntie already said, the script went through various versions and this continued even after all the footage was shot. So in the original envisioning, when we were shooting it, there was a slightly different ending. But what remains consistent, I think, is that because she has put so much trust in the system, that is how she knows how to live her life. And she excels. She has affirmation when she follows that system to the T. You know, she's the top happiness contributor. She sort of helps other people buy into whatever cool aid it is that they're selling at Tiong Bahru Social Club. And she thinks it's great, you know, like whether or not it's real, there is a structure that people can follow. And she's affirming this structure and therefore giving purpose to people who live at Tiong Bahru Social Club. So I think even though similar to Nolina's character, Abi sort of shakes her faith in the system, she does not actually know any other way to be. So I think there is a sort of, the cracks are starting to appear, but I suspect that for quite a few years, she will stay at Tiong Bahru Social Club, and maybe she will just hit it off with the next best match. And if that goes well, and this the next best match is not so questioning, then very well she could live her life in the Matrix until the end of her existence, and she becomes a resident, and some Tiong Bahru happiness agent helps her along, and that's fine. I mean, if this is an illusion that you can sustain your entire life, why not? There's nothing wrong with it, I think. I mean, a lot of people would say that institutions are illusions, and whether it's your philosophy, your religion, you know, I mean, if that sustains you through your life, whatever works, you know, what is the meaning of happiness really? You know, as long as you get through life and it works for you, ours not to question why. That would be my reading of what happens to Gyok. I think she would try to eliminate the seeds of doubt in her brain. Like, no, this never happened. Yeah, this is what I imagine.
So actually, so following your conversation, it's very nice to come to Mrs. Wee, so played by Jolene, because you are, for me, I see you as kind of almost like a rebellious, destructive force.
Miss Wee, she chose the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're almost like a bit disruptive in this Tiong Bahru Social Club, because when everyone is trying very hard to be happy or make the other people happy, I feel your happiness seems to come from making Abi's life a misery. See, he's like chasing and then trying to meet your character's demand. And but at the end, I do find your character find happiness, even though in a kind of not unexplained circumstance. So what's your take on your character?
Okay, because like Tiong Bahru, at first you think it's a very Singaporean place, but actually this applies to a lot of cosmopolitan city, you know, like Beijing the 四合院, Taipei 烟厂 become 文创区, that kind of thing. So it's like, this kind of hit place is very popular to the young people. But what about the old elderly that stay there? We might feel disturbed, you know. That is how Miss We feel. So, and yeah, like what you say, what is happiness? You know, I have, Miss We just want to live her life at her own pace, you know. Yeah, her own way. But, you know, but along the way, I think she also, sayang Abi, sayang, okay, because I'm very typical Singaporean, sayang means she feels something for Abi that, you know, this poor boy, why are giving him so much problem? So she decided to attend some of the activities lah, but she just can't fit in. Okay, but she didn't, you know, just say no. She just tried to adapt, but that is their standard, but not her standard. But in the end, she still feels happy that, you know, she died with happiness. I think
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that is what, I mean, sure, is it every one of us will want to live our life like that, you know, at the end of the day, we are, you know, like, because she quite envy that their old couple can still have their love life. So finally she has a, so yeah, okay, 哪怕是最后1分钟, I don't know how to explain, translate to English, but I think a lot of things in Tiong Bahru Social Club reflect a lot about the tangible and intangible, just like happiness. You know, in Chinese, 快乐和幸福它可能有点不一样. Yeah, but happy, but 幸福 is 幸福. 幸福 is 有意义的快乐. I don't know. So something like that. So yeah, so the Lao Tzu, so when because we shot different, you know, segments, so finally I get to watch that at
the full film.
Yeah, at the film fest. Then I said, oh, I want to know more, you know. I want to know more. I want to know more about this movie, that the part that I have, there's some blank part, because I really like the stillness, like our Wan Ping have, the DOP have do. I think the picture, like a picture book, this is very Lao Tzu. To me, is very Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is like the thing, the path, everything is the same, the flow. You can't change the time, you can't change the, but it's like still, but it's moving. So there's like our thoughts, but the time is still like day, night, good, bad, happy, not happy. But it's the flow of your thoughts that I get a lot from the stillness of the DOP. So I feel that Lao Tzu part of it give, as an audience, I feel that I'm watching myself. Yeah, I also hope the audience, like from everywhere, come and watch yourself, and yeah, and think about what is your happiness. Miss Wee, it's not she just want to speak her way, but it's her humor that might offend others, but it's not her intention, I think. Yeah.
What I pick up from what you just said, actually, BTM, I noticed, and I don't know if that's true, does actors only get the part of their script, not the full script?
I believe they get the whole script
We
because
got
we
the
had
whole
a script reading right
Okay.
before the film starts. But that said, like we actually give a lot of space for the actors to own the character. So what ended up, in the film is almost 50% written, 50% improvised. So like,
okay.
the dance is choreographed by Jaylene, and some of the action and gestures by Joe was designed by her. And even for Nolina, right, when she said, oh, this and this line, I think my character wouldn't say that. Then we would ask them, like, what do you think, they would say, and it would be, like collaborated with them to do so. Even for Guak Kian, her whole complaint center scene, right, when she was talking to her son, it was all written by her. So we just tweaked here and there. Yeah, so I think that was the joy as well for me having, my writer on set every day with me, I'm working with the actors to, I think, make the dialogue and make the lines work better. Yeah, so that's what we did. So I think what we provided is really a canvas, and then we invite, different collaborators, cast and crew to come to feel, right, the canvas to make this into a picture. Yeah, so which is why when Jaylene was talking about how she has read the script, but she has not seen the film, because I think different people bring in different things along the way during the shoot, and she only attended the days when she was the shoot days when she was around. Yeah,
it's very true. It's like it's actually like an exceptionally collaborative process, and I think that's also like BTM's style, like really like involving like the whole group. So not only like that we were like working together, but like everyone, like from art and design, from production, from like from all aspects, and of course like the actors. But yeah, it was like a very interesting way of working. Like and if we felt that there's something could be better, like it would like make it at least we would attempt with it. And also like as BTM said, there's like a lot of like just like shooting from the hip, like we yeah, a lot of freestyle, so to say. It looks like very constructed piece, and of course the basic like elements are there, but a lot of it is very organically done, and even like things that were made up when the camera was almost like rolling. And that's why like and it's interesting you mentioned like say like Abhi's movements and the way all the scenes are choreographed, like we because we knew that we want to make Abhi like almost mute as a character. So it kind of forced us to really in the scripting phase already to think of the rooms where we will possibly shoot and try to define movements. And we knew that the moment we go like and we set up the camera the morning we're going to shoot in the room, the first thing, and even on a script level, is to define like how all the movements will happen, because there's nothing else like in many of the scenes. Like it really relies so heavily on it. So and that's where you need to ask the actors as well, like, okay, this is a room, how would you move here? This is where the camera is and how to make it work. And I think that's where the beauty of it as well like lies.
I think this is the time we come to JX, because you are the one that put a lot of effort into bringing this project into actuality. How did you come on board with this project? What attracted you to this Tiong Bahru Social Club?
So actually, I joined the project, I think probably 3 years after they first conceptualized it. And it was basically just Wan Ping and I were good friends. And he said, hey, do you want to produce this film? I said, what film is it? So he brought me to meet BTM, and BTM said, he just gave me a 1 page, and the 1 page only had 2 lines on it. And 2 lines were, do you have a passion card? And the character says no passion, right? And to me, I just agreed, maybe a bit too eager, because there's a lot of struggle after that producing this beast of a film under a very tight budget. But I was very interested in doing it because it was something fresh, which I had not seen in Singapore before, something that was, I felt, very local and could be accessible to audiences. but also could allow people to think about what Singaporean cinema could be, how Singapore was portrayed on screen as well. So, I mean, I jumped on board at first to just help out, and I just ended up producing it, I guess, yeah.
So actually, now I'm going to move to the questions from the audience, and I have one question from the audience for you. You can choose to answer or not answer. So this question from the audience, it says, looks amazing. What's the budget?
Oh, budget's very low. Budget's very low.
So you stop here. Budget is very low.
I would say the budget is much lower than Jack Neo movies. I think that's fair accurate.
Okay. And then actually this question probably also for you. Are the residents in Tiong Bahru Social Club actual residents of Tiong Bahru?
We really tried to recruit as many residents of Tiong Bahru as possible. So we did put up flyers around Tiong Bahru to recruit. But I think we also needed to supplement some of that, because in our big crowd scenes, which were really insane, I think we had close to 80 to 100 elderly people standing in the sun, walking and chasing and trying to find a cat. And even the pool scenes, so I think we had 50 elderly people just hanging around the pool on an overnight shoot. So the coordination of it, I think, was pretty epic for the scale. And I think, thankfully, we had a lot of support from even Tiong Bahru itself. The community was very supportive of us. And I think we are very excited to have it play to the audiences there as well.
We have, so one last question from the audience. A comment first, a non-depressing Singaporean film, exclamation mark. Highly enjoyable, another exclamation mark. Now comes the questions. The ending, is that the next step of evolution or the imagination of Abi and his mother? I think that will be for Bitian and Auntie for this one.
Yeah, you're leaving it for me. So basically, we always had this idea of a real estate company, like this property aspect. Like that was from the get-go. It was a big part of the core of the film, how there is some sort of like a real estate company that tries to jack up the prices of a neighborhood by proving that this is the happiest neighborhood in the world. And once you have your proof of concept, then you can start scaling it up. And that's of course how tech companies work. And that's why we see towards the end, how this concept can start traveling to other neighborhoods as well, without giving too many spoilers if somebody ends up watching this further. But that's kind of so it is reality. So it's not just imagination. And it is about scaling up the concept.
It does remind me that we need to add kind of spoiler alert when we put out the YouTube.
So anyway, very happy to have the film released at GV 10th of December. Really hope everybody supports the film. I think we need that show of support physically in the cinemas, because we don't know how long it will run, and we hope you all enjoy it, and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for you all joining us for the Q&A today, and we're very glad to have Tiong Bahru Social Club for this year's opening film at SGIFF, and I hope some audience may meet after met after the screening and decide to make another film from the inspiration of this one. So thank you.
Thank you, Ming.
I'm very happy to sell them the props if they want from the.
Okay.
We're really thankful for the film festival for choosing our film as the opening film. And actually, a number of us, we're also catching films at the film fairs in the next 1 week. So if you meet us, during the screenings, do say hi and share with us what you think. Yeah.
We will encourage our audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Thank you. Bye-bye.